From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 11, streaming now.
Tonight, a reminder from a heartbroken family and domestic violence advocates that help is out there. Today, IMPD announced an arrest in the death of a 32-year-old mother. We are not naming the suspect, who has not been formally charged, but her family and police say the man under arrest was her husband.
They're sharing her story through a local group that helps people get out of abusive situations. WRTV's Cornelius Hawker explains.
She was the life of the party. She kept a smile. She loved her children as well as her family.
That's what Ashley Bell's family told Daniette Smith about their loved one who was killed earlier this month. Daniette is the founder of Silent No More, Inc., a nonprofit dedicated to helping people get out of relationships where they're being physically and emotionally abused.
There are people out here, including myself, who are survivors that are willing to step in those shoes with you and walk you out of it, get you the resources that's needed.
While we're still waiting on police to tell us more about the circumstances surrounding Ashley's killing, Daniette says this is another reminder that domestic violence is real and happening in our community. She tells me the pandemic has only made things worse.
Since people are forced to stay in their homes, not go to work, and with the job decrease, it has really turned the numbers up for domestic violence and it just has us working a lot.
As our leaders focus on trying to get control of the coronavirus, Daniette hopes they'll also help deal with the ripple effects of the pandemic by funding groups in the community helping those dealing with domestic violence.
The small organizations, the grassroots organizations need that funding so that way we can go inside of the community, we can go to those doors, we can help those individuals who are facing domestic violence directly, more so than waiting on them to contact us.
With the blessing from Ashley's family, Daniette is speaking out to hopefully save someone else's life, getting them out of their dangerous situation before it turns deadly.
You don't have to stay. There are resources out here. Even if the shelters are full, there is funding out there to get you placed into a safe environment.
Working for you, Cornelius Hawker, WRTV.
You can find a list of resources available for those dealing with domestic violence in this story on our app. And the National Domestic Violence Hotline is available anytime at 1-800-799-SAFE.
Families who have lost loved ones to violence in Indianapolis demanded to be heard, and it worked.
They listened. They apologized to me and to all of the parents for leaving us feeling like we've been let down and they don't care.
Someone killed Melissa Jude's son in June of last year at Arsenal Park. She says it has been difficult contacting the detective on the case. Through support groups, she met other mothers facing the same challenges. They held a protest earlier this month calling for better communication between detectives and grieving families. Days later, Jude met with an IMPD homicide captain and the manager of victims assistance.
It went well, and that's all I wanted to hear. Someone higher than what we're dealing with to listen to us, put themselves in our shoes, and just when you lose your child or a loved one, you're just left there to find resources and kind of deal with, to us, what feels like a three-ring circus afterwards. And I told them it's like taking gasoline and pouring it on a fire with those emotions.
An IMPD spokeswoman says the push from families sparked a rededication to the department's family contact protocol. Under that protocol, unsolved homicides that happened in 2019 or later require a quarterly contact with family for the first 2 years.
We're learning more about the city's plan to make Indianapolis a safer place and help people go down a positive path. Officials will begin working with violence interrupters, paid community members who are familiar with the city's hardest hit neighborhoods. Those interrupters will build relationships with people who may be involved in gun violence. Like many programs, the goal is to provide resources like education and job opportunities. Shane Shepard, an interpreter, says speaking from experience, having a credible messenger is important.
I never had credible messengers. I always had a preacher or a politician or a coach player, somebody who I couldn't relate to, that would come and say, hey, I made it through. I was black. I was in your community and I made it. That's fine. But can you tell me how? You never told me the ins and outs. You never told me what you went through. You never told me about your sleepless nights on the pillow, your thoughts to go out and commit a crime, but you knew you had practice tomorrow, so you chose to go. You never told me that stuff.
6 interpreters will be contracted through the Indy Public Safety Foundation.
Hiring Hoosiers is connecting you to job opportunities and career paths that you might not come across in your job search. Central Indiana social workers say there is a serious need for more black men in their field. WRTV's Cameron Riddle shows you how they're working to recruit people and support kids and families through the impacts of the pandemic.
As the calendar inches closer to the one-year anniversary of the coronavirus pandemic, the long and short-term effects of sickness and unemployment are taking a toll on people across the nation, and black men have been more likely than most to feel those effects.
The pandemic has killed so many people of color. People have lost houses, they've lost income, and so the social worker as a whole, that I believe that they're a great need for them.
David Brown is a behavioral therapist. He says his fellow members of the Central Indiana Association of Black Social Workers say there is a large shortage and a heavy demand for black men in their industry, a job that is notorious for its low wages and stigmas that paint the social worker as the bad guy.
Thinking that the social worker is going to be the snitch, is going to be the one that goes in the house and remove the kids.
Brown says the industry of social work is dominated by white women, with a lesser number of black males who can relate to the people they are trying to serve.
It's one thing to read about being an African-American man, but it's another thing to have been experienced to some of the challenges and some of the biases and some of the the racism of it.
In an effort to add to the industry's talent pool, Brown and his colleagues from the Black Social Workers Association are hosting a virtual informational session this Saturday, where they hope to inspire more black men to get involved and make a difference.
If we're not at the table, if we're not included in the planning, how can you plan something for me as an African-American man, but there's no representation?
Cameron Riddle, WRTV.
The Central Indiana Black Social Workers Association will host its virtual information session this Saturday at 2:30. We do have a link for you to sign up for that session at WRTV.com.
Now to the latest on the health impact of COVID-19 as thousands of people a day continue to test positive for the virus in Indiana, and thousands per day are treated in hospitals across the Hoosier State. A radiologist at IU Health is giving an inside look at how damaging COVID can be.
In the radiology world, we want to be able to not have to see the terrible things that COVID can do to people's bodies. So an example of that here, since a picture is worth 1,000 words, we've got some normal lungs here, nice and black, that shows lots of good air in those lungs. And then this is a set of lungs that has a COVID infection. And you can see all these areas that look gray. Those are areas of their lungs that are filled with the COVID-19 infection. So I encourage you all to get your vaccine too, so that we don't have to have this in our life anymore.
Right now, anyone age 70 and older, long-term care residents, first responders, and healthcare workers are eligible for the vaccine in Indiana. You can register at ourshot.in.gov or by calling 211.
The next group eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine in Indiana will be people ages 65 to 69, but there is no timetable for when the next eligibility date will open. Governor Eric Holcomb made the announcement at today's weekly briefing on the pandemic. The initial plan called for eligibility to expand to people as young as 60, but officials adjusted after learning vaccines are coming from the federal government slower than expected.
We are committed to providing a vaccine to any eligible Hoosier who wants one. At the same time, we need to ensure that we have second doses available 3 to 4 weeks after the first dose is administered. Despite being told that additional vaccine would be coming to states, we've since learned that there is no national stockpile. Our vaccine allocations have not increased beyond the roughly 78 to 80,000 doses we were already expecting each week.
Dr. Lindsay Weaver says the system is in place to avoid canceling vaccine appointments because of low supply.
President Biden is already working to put a national plan in place to fight the pandemic. ABC's Alex Brochet has the latest from Washington.
President Joe Biden spending his first full day in office focused on tackling the health and economic challenges caused by the coronavirus pandemic.
Our national strategy is comprehensive, It's based on science, not politics. It's based on truth, not denial.
Mr. Biden signing 10 executive actions, using the Defense Production Act to order private companies to manufacture COVID supplies, requiring masks on federal properties, and at airports, international travelers now required to show proof of a negative COVID-19 test before they arrive stateside. He's also directing FEMA to establish 100 federal vaccination sites across the country in the next month and authorizing more medical professionals to administer the shots. These plans come on the heels of Biden having the U.S. rejoin the World Health Organization. This afternoon, Dr. Anthony Fauci at the White House briefing with this prediction.
If we get the majority of Americans, 70 to 85% vaccinated by then, we could have a degree of herd immunity that would get us back to normal. The best case scenario for me is that we'd get 85% of the people vaccinated by the end of the summer.
Meanwhile, in the new democratically controlled Senate, the Republican minority leader seizing on Biden's invitation for unity.
So our side is ready to share ideas and work with the Biden administration.
But also criticizing the new president for using executive orders to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord and cancel the Keystone XL pipeline.
On the Biden administration's very first day, it took several big steps in the wrong direction.
President Biden will need cooperation from Republicans in both the House and Senate going forward, especially for initiatives like his massive $1.9 trillion economic rescue package. Also looming, the second impeachment trial for former President Donald Trump for inciting the January 6th riot at the Capitol, which could start any day.
The question is, are there questions about how a trial will proceed? But we are ready.
Late this evening, Trump advisor Jason Miller confirmed that attorney Butch Bowers will be representing former President Trump during his Senate impeachment trial. Again, Democrats need 17 Republicans to vote along with them to convict the former president. Alex Prechet, ABC News, Capitol Hill.
Well, we had some nice weather today, but the cold temperatures are returning. We also have snow, freezing rain, and rain in the forecast this weekend. Those details coming up.
2 local entrepreneurs will get their shot on the Shark Tank tomorrow. Tonight, we're letting you be the judge. Next, hear the pitch behind this invention.
From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 11, streaming now.
2 local entrepreneurs will enter the Shark Tank tomorrow. Tonight, I spoke to the team behind the Brewmachen. It's a single-serve brewer that makes coffee on the go.
You can take this coffee machine all over the world, planes, trains, automobiles, camping, whatever you want. It can plug into your car, into your house outlets, and you can plug it into an external battery.
Ross Smith is the marketing mind behind the invention. His business partner, Kwaku Larbi, created the Brewmachen brewer. He describes it making it to the Shark Tank as an example of the American dream becoming reality.
The day we walked into the tank, I was wondering, like, is this real? Let me pinch myself. Like, I'm actually in the Shark Tank. I used to watch this when I lived in Africa. I used to watch this, you know.
We'll find out if the Brewmachen has what it takes to impress the Sharks tomorrow night at 8 o'clock only on WRTV. And you can learn more about the product right now at brewmachen.com.
Sounds very cool, and we do have a very cool forecast ahead. Those temperatures today were a bit above average into the 50s in some areas. We hit 49 here in Indy. Right now, it's at 38 degrees. We have those clear skies. Winds still fairly breezy out of the west, about 15 to 20 miles per hour, and those gusts are even stronger. We're seeing those gusts still in the 20 to 30 mile per hour range, and we're going to continue to see those gusty conditions overnight, but you'll notice those arrows are changing. So they're westerly right now, but as we head overnight, those are going to become more northerly, and what that's doing is it's helping usher in that cooler Canadian air. So temperatures by tomorrow morning will be in the 20s, but because we do have those strong winds still, it's actually going to feel a lot more like the teens and the single digits across central Indiana to start your Friday off. Looking ahead to the next few days, that cold air is really going to amplify as we head into Saturday morning. That's when we'll see that Arctic air mass in place across the Midwest and across central Indiana. So by Saturday morning, temperatures will only be into the teens. It is going to feel bitter outside. Looking over to Saturday and Sunday. Saturday, most of the day is going to warm up quickly because we are going to see plenty of clear skies. But by the evening, we'll see more cloud coverage for your weekend forecast Saturday night and into Sunday. And then we do have a system that's moving in Sunday. Looks like morning now. We were looking at it moving in later in the day, but now it looks like it's going to really hit us by about the noon hour. That's when we're going to see the most effective system moving into our area. And we're really seeing rain, freezing rain, and snow as a possibility with this system. It does look like a lot of the snow will be further north with a lot of that freezing rain right through Indianapolis and central Indiana. Of course, we'll keep an eye on that for you and let you know exactly what to expect at your house as we head into that Monday commute, especially because that's when we're expecting to see that system really continue moving across Indiana. Saturday, temperatures will be in the low 30s. Again, that cool start. So our weekend, we're sort of seeing that split where we see that rain snow mix Sunday and then that cooler air Saturday, but clear conditions. Tomorrow, 29 degrees for the high, partly cloudy skies. We're starting cool in the morning. We have those wind chills that are a factor, so it's going to be a chilly start to our Friday, not like that nice weather we saw today. And then we'll continue to see that potential of a rain snow mix Sunday and into Monday before we clear out for the rest of the week.
Thanks, Alyssa. You've heard the urgent calls for blood donations in recent months. They come as many people are ready and willing to roll up their sleeves to help, but they're not allowed. Newsy's Kat Sandoval explains the latest push to end blood donation discrimination against gay men.
There's a critical need for blood donation because of the pandemic.
And to your left, and you should see it.
But a group of people is left out of the donation pool, gay and bisexual men.
It's incredibly frustrating and frankly, I mean, just not even to tone it down, it pisses me off.
We need blood and I'm not allowed to help, wrote Dr. Greg Zahner in the Journal of the American Medical Association. Zahner is gay and works in the front lines fighting COVID-19. Under FDA guidelines, men who have sex with men, or MSM, must abstain from sex for 3 months before giving blood. This restriction still applies to men in monogamous relationships.
I wanted to donate blood and to help because there's a lot of shortage of blood right now. And unfortunately, still with the FDA's rules, I'm not able to do that.
The FDA has changed these rules several times. In the 80s, early in the HIV epidemic, MSM were banned from donating at all to help reduce HIV transmission. In 2015, it was changed to a year of abstinence. And in April 2020, because of the pandemic, the FDA loosened the restrictions to 3 months of abstinence.
You could say, oh, great, that's progress. But I think that just really shows that this could have been enacted long before and that they were only making the change because now suddenly somehow it mattered.
So does science support this restriction? We turn to infectious disease and HIV expert Dr. Anuruddha Hazra from the University of Chicago Medicine.
A lot of these sort of restrictions are very antiquated and no longer really based in science any longer.
According to the CDC, all blood earmarked for transfusions is screened for HIV, regardless of the donor. And advocates say blanket rules based on sexual orientation aren't nearly as useful as more targeted individual assessments.
Sexual orientation is just that, orientation. It does not confer behavior. It does not dictate behavior either. I think individualized risk assessments is really the best way to understand who would potentially be a higher risk donor.
Over 500 medical experts agree, and they have signed an open letter to the FDA calling the 3-month deferment for MSM an outdated, unscientific, historical discrimination. And they are pushing for an individualized risk assessment instead. The FDA tells Newsy it's considering alternatives to time-based deferral and that it's currently conducting a pilot study that looks at this issue. But it doesn't have a timeline of when the study will be completed. So for now, potential donors like Dr. Zahner will have to wait.
The hospital I work at is constantly asking us to donate blood because they're having a hard time getting donors in from the community just because people are scared to leave their homes. When I have a blood type, that makes me a very valuable donor.
For Newsy, I'm Kat Sandoval.
.com.
Welcome back this weekend, and for the first time in 10 months, Pacers fans will return to Bankers Life Fieldhouse. They will notice some changes. Our Brad Brown shows what's new.
For a building that's now more than 20 years old, Bankers Life Fieldhouse is still looking like it's brand new.
This building has a great understructure. It's going to be here for a long time and another generation.
The first phase of a 3-year construction and renovation program has been completed. 9 months of work have led to some brand new spaces and some major upgrades to others.
We're excited for all of it. It's a beautiful building. It's the best building to watch a game, basketball game in the country, probably in the world, and we're making it even better. We're excited for people to get to see it.
Construction inside has been what they call a bottom-up plan, with the premium spaces on the event level getting started. But for fans walking inside the field house, they will get a strong visual of what's been done here from the moment they walk in. The massive center court video board is all new, with bigger, brighter screens and more visuals from every seat of the field house. Speaking of seats, those are being upgraded as well. The original green chairs replaced by new, more comfortable gray ones. The lower bowl is complete. Those will eventually make their way to the upper levels.
It was a matter of trying to get the populace and the other architects who are working on it to say, hey, what can we do that's financially feasible and make it look like it's totally different? And so the work that was done for the months and months and months before we started construction was really the opportunity for us to make sure that we did it right.
The biggest changes are coming mostly out of sight of the Arena Bowl. The lower level suites have all gotten an upgrade, new TVs, new chairs, and a more premium atmosphere. There's also the addition of 2 new club spaces. The 67 Club plays homage to the Pacers' beginnings, and the Hardwood Club to the state's rich basketball history. Fans sitting in the lower levels will have access.
We know that each person coming in here sort of has a unique hope for that game. Some it's really centered on if we win or lose. Some is just, hanging out with friends. I think our goal has really been to create that experience that appeals to each person individually while still having sort of a shared experience overall.
The Fieldhouse practice court got a vertical adjustment. A move to street level opened up more than 7,000 square feet of space underneath. That's now home to the locker room and training facilities for the Fever, making it among the best in the WNBA.
It's all the little things that will make us into that championship type team. So we're excited. Got a lot of work ahead of us, but it starts right here.
We're trying to create an environment where championships are the norm. So we're in that process. This is a big piece of that, to have the ability to provide for our players every resource they need to be at their best, to learn and to grow.
There are changes being made as fans come back to the Fieldhouse while COVID-19 remains an issue. Signs for social distancing, a cashless payment and debit system. Tickets will go digital as well. The Fieldhouse of the future? It'll feel like that from the moment you walk in.
This really forces businesses to adapt, and a lot of times we're more cautious and fearful of how our fans are going to respond than how they actually do. And sometimes we need a gentle little nudge, and certainly this pandemic was more than just a gentle little nudge.
The next phase of construction will begin and continue this spring. Working for you, Brad Brown, WRTV Sports.
Just order ahead in the Meijer app.
Some chillier temperatures are moving in overnight. Temperatures will drop into the 20s. It'll feel more like the teens tomorrow morning because of the wind chill. Highs only in the upper 20s on Friday. The good news is we will see some sunshine, and then cool on Saturday as well. Highs only in the low 30s. A chance of a rain-snow mix comes in on Sunday. We dry out by Tuesday.
All right, bundle up. Hey, we want to thank you for joining us for WRTV News at 11. Make sure you join the GMI crew tomorrow at 4:30. Have a good night, everybody.